In this episode, my guest has lost 100 pounds 3 times. And after the last time, it really led her on a health journey where she discovered yoga, and her search for a diet led her from vegan to carnivore. So join me as I talk to Sarah Kleiner, the Carnivore Yogi. Thank you for joining us today on another episode of Hunger Hunt Feast. Today, my guest is Sarah Kleiner, known as the Carnivore Yogi on Instagram and YouTube. Sarah, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Sarah's background is very interesting. She's been a yoga meditation instructor for how long now? Many years.
A little over a decade now, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And you had really a journey from, you probably started off more plant-based, and you've had quite a journey towards really a carnivore diet. So that's why I asked you on. I wanted to hear about that transformation or that transition, I should say, and how that has helped you personally. So tell us a little bit about what your background, and give us your story.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, thanks again for having me. Another thing I don't talk about as much, I've started talking about it a little bit more, is the fact that I've lost 100 pounds 3 times in my life.
Wow. That's significant.
Yeah. The last time was after my daughter was born. She's 12 now. And I made this decision of I'm going to have a child and I'm never going to do this again. I don't want to have this kind of disordered behavior. I really want to, deal with this stuff. So I lost the weight, and then I started, after she was born, she was diagnosed with autism about 16 months in, and it's been a very severe form of autism. She still doesn't speak. It's been quite the journey. So to deal with my stress, I found yoga. It was dove headfirst in. I had to quit my corporate job. My whole life just completely changed. And so I dove heavily into yoga to just really help me manage. You get PTSD when a big event like that happens. Your whole life changes. You can't work. It's a big change. So yoga was the thing that helped me to find peace and calm in my body, to get me out of that sympathetic nervous system that I was basically living in for a couple of years there. So I was all in. I'm I'm going to teach, this is it. And so I decided to go vegan. It's almost like a thing that you do. You're going to be immersed in the yoga lifestyle. It was helping me so much that I thought I just have to do the whole thing. I don't do anything halfway. So I was right off vegan, and at first I did feel really good. And I was also kind of searching for a way to not ever gain that 100 pounds back again. So that was also in the back of my mind of everyone says, vegan, you stay really trim. You don't worry about your weight. It's just so that'll help me more on this road to recovery of never having to lose 100 pounds again, which, by the way, I have been successful in that, thank goodness. But after a year or so, I started having some problems. My teeth, I got cavities. I was like, this is weird, because I never really had cavities before. I always had really healthy teeth. My digestion was really messed up, and I had to go see a gastroenterologist because I had such horrible gas. And I thought that there was certainly something really wrong with me because I couldn't eat a meal without having horrendous gas and just feeling bad. And then I started just getting ghastly thin. I wanted to be thin, all women,
right.
we want to have our weight down, but I was overly thin, just sunken in face, very anemic, didn't look good, tired all of the time. And I got to the end of year 2, and I was doing an advanced yoga training, and it was my yoga teacher that was look, I know what you're trying to do here. I know you're trying to practice ahimsa, which is, non-harming, non-violence. But this is the other way I want you to look at ahimsa, is that if you are sick and if you're trying to live and die by this vegan dogma, you're going to be of absolutely no service to your students, to your family, to humanity. And you're kind of committing some violence towards yourself by basically trying to follow this like it's some kind of religion or dogma or something. You need animal protein. And at that point, I was just incredibly relieved to have permission
Yes.
to go eat meat because I was already craving it. I've always been someone who loves meat, and I have A negative blood type, by the way, because everyone's like, what's your blood type? It must be O or B. No, I'm A negative. So my blood type is the one where you're supposed to thrive as a vegetarian. So I just think the blood type diet is stupid. That's just my opinion.
I think you're probably onto something there.
Dumb. So yeah, I started eating meat again and started feeling better, like really quickly, right away. Started feeling a lot better.
Wow. Now, had you been, I mean, with the 100-pound gain and loss 3 times, and then you were pregnant the last time, were you dealing with any sort of gestational diabetes or pre-diabetes of any kind, or was it mainly just weight and disordered eating?
Yeah, it was just weight and disordered eating. I was 28 when I had my daughter. So I think I was still, if I had been doing that kind of stuff now at my age, I'm 41 now, I think it would be a problem. I think it would definitely cause some gestational diabetes or serious issues. But I think I was just young enough to have gotten away with it at the time, kind of right on that cusp. But yeah.
And active, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, were you active at the time that you were going through the weight gain? I mean, was yoga your first entry into some level of physical fitness, or had you been somewhat active prior to that in other areas?
I've had like kind of a disordered relationship with exercise. My original story of how I gained 100 pounds the first time was when I was 13. My parents split up. My dad ended up being diagnosed with a terminal illness, and it was just really heart-wrenching, and their divorce was ugly. And my dad had always been the one to try to get me to go to the gym and work out. And so it kind of made me have a little bit of a hate towards the gym, because he would even hire personal trainers and like make me go.
Oh, wow.
I was 14, and that was like when he was gone and he left, and I was like, I'm not working out. I hate this. I'm going to eat whatever I want. And I just gained 100 pounds really quickly.
As a teenager?
I was 14.
Oh my gosh.
High school was horrible, and then I ended up losing the weight. And then he passed when I was 18, and within 3 months I gained it, like almost all of it back.
Oh, wow.
That was the second time. And so then, most of my 20s, I actually ran a marathon when I was in my early 20s. I got really into jogging. I wasn't so much into weightlifting. Like now I really prefer weightlifting over cardio. But I was really into marathons and just having fun doing that. And that third time that I gained the weight, I had met my husband in my mid-20s and kind of picked up some bad habits with him. He's like 6'4", and I would try to drink as much beer as he did and eat chicken wings he did, it was fun.
Right.
So I was kind of heading down that unhealthy path, and I was already, probably a good 30 pounds overweight. And then I got pregnant and gained like another 60 pounds, 70 pounds. And so it was like the pregnancy just like put me on the edge to be, needing to lose 100 pounds again. So that's how I lost 100 pounds that many times. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thankfully you didn't have gestational diabetes problems, because I hear that a lot actually with that kind of weight gain. But so you got your permission. Let's pick up where we left off before I interrupted you. But I appreciate that backstory, because that really gives some reference for people who can relate to this kind of struggle with weight your whole life. Yeah. So, which a lot of, especially women, it seems, because of things that happen, just life happens, and that's how you choose to deal with it.
It's a coping mechanism that doesn't work. It worked probably when I was a really little kid for a little bit, but then it's like when it starts wrecking your health, it's no longer working. But you can, as an adult, continue to use food as a coping mechanism, and people are doing it left and right, all the time. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Yes. All over our country. So let's, when you were having issues you said you were very gaunt, anemic. Mm-hmm. As a vegan, were there any other health issues you were dealing with? I hear about skin issues. I hear about stress. I hear, so I was just curious if you had joint pain. I mean, the cavities I can relate to that. I spent about 3.5 years as a vegetarian in my early 20s. I'd never had a cavity until I became a vegetarian. And and I didn't tie them together until much later in life, when I got more into nutrition and so forth, and realized, there's probably a connection there.
Yeah.
But so I can relate to your journey there with just feeling the health. You can't recover. You're very thin. You can't put on any muscle. Strength is, you're tired all the time. I could fall asleep anywhere. Personally, I'm like in a loud bar, or so, band going, and I'm, out at the time. And it was, so I can relate to that. But what were you noticing any other sort of more internal symptoms of?
Well, I mean, just with the bloating, really, and the gas, like this, it was severe GI distress. I mean, there were just a lot of nights where I would just sleep out on the couch because, nuts and I have never agreed, but nuts are something that you eat a lot of as a vegan because you want to get those fat, you want to get the protein, and you want the amino acid, all the stuff that you get out of the nuts. You want that.
And general calories.
Yeah. Calories too. So those would ruin me. And then I would try to do the, tons of kale and tons of greens. And it just was a total disaster for my digestive system.
Yeah. Contrary to popular belief. All the fiber really is really hard on it.
Fiber. Yeah. Very difficult for your gut to handle. But I would get injuries. Like it was like the right shoulder is where it started. And I was a yoga teacher. So I'm doing a lot of plank and like the arm balances and handstands and all that stuff. And I would go through phases where one shoulder would be in so much pain that I would be teaching, and I would try to hide the fact that I was so injured that plank pose hurt, and then it would travel to my wrist, and then it would go to the left shoulder, and then it would go to the left wrist. And it was like, it had this like this pain pattern and these injuries that would just not go away. I mean, for probably the whole time I was vegan, I was having either a shoulder or one of my shoulders or one of my wrists was in severe pain. And it seemed like nothing that I did would make that go away. And I'll tell you, knock on wood, I have not had any shoulder or wrist pain since I quit being vegan. Like none. It's been fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So general inflammation in joints and probably losing some of that cartilage and that tissue that is just what's being replaced by animal fat. So you got the permission from your instructor or your teacher to kind of start checking out animal protein, but that I can imagine that wasn't something that was like, I don't know, maybe you did. You said you go all in, but I mean, the change in your digestive system from all plant to animal, I would assume there's a bit of a transition period there, or something you were exploring or testing.
I mean, I went really slow. I started with like egg whites. I didn't even go full egg. And then I remember being at the beach and I got like a chicken burrito, and my husband was like so excited because he's like, finally, doesn't pull his crap anymore. Every time we go to a restaurant, she's got to leave.
Dissect the menu. Yeah.
Go to a steakhouse again, thank God, and she'll order more than onion rings,
Right.
So I remember getting a chicken burrito at the beach and just eating it and feeling so good afterwards. I mean, I felt so good just from chicken. Now, if I eat chicken, I'm kind of like, I don't love chicken. Not my first choice, but after not really having any meat for a couple of years, it felt really good to have the chicken. My energy was great. I didn't really have any bad, side effects from that. It probably was a couple months before I started eating meat every single day. And then even longer before I actually tried like any ruminant animals and eat like red meat.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I'm really slow with it. I definitely didn't go like some people, I see them go vegan to carnivore. I'm like, oh, no, that's probably not the best idea to do that.
Let your biome catch up a little bit. Let your bacteria back up. Yeah. That might be a uncomfortable process.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So now you would say you're pretty much all carnivore, or 95.
I'm mostly carnivore. I've been experimenting with different foods, adding things back in like avocado. I've tried a little broccoli. I've tried some asparagus. Like I'm trying a little bit here and there to put a little bit more variety in my diet. But right now, I'm just pretty much straight up carnivore. I had kind of a reaction to some broccoli. And I was like, okay, I don't need this. So I'm pretty much straight back on carnivore now.
Gotcha. How long did it take you to get there from when you started with vegan and testing to get to where you're, say, 90, 95%, 99% carnivore? How
Well,
long?
I was just pretty much like paleo for many years
Okay.
between. So it was probably 2014 that I
Okay.
started eating meat again.
Okay.
And then I, did paleo. I would still go light on the meat. So I was still trying to do a ton of vegetables and just like a little tiny bit of meat because that's what I thought was healthy. Because that's kind of the narrative right now is like fill your plate with vegetables and limit your meat, have meatless Monday, skip the meat, try to still do,
Right.
And so that's what I was trying to do. So eventually a lot of those digestive issues started coming back.
Hmm.
A lot of the joint pain and things like that started coming back also because I was really limiting the amount of animal protein that I had. I had this big guilt about it too. So I was really attempting just to stay very plant heavy, but also just eat enough meat so that I wouldn't become severely anemic again, and run into the same kind of problems. But that's kind of what led me to try carnivore was that I wasn't having the shoulder and wrist pain, thank goodness, but I was having joint pain in my knees. I was doing Ashtanga yoga, which is a pretty hardcore athletic type of yoga.
Mm-hmm.
That you do every morning at 5 a.m. And it's like, it's pretty, so I had been doing that for about a year and I loved it, but I had to quit because I was just not recovering from injuries. My knees were hurting. I was getting a lot of weird aches and pains. And I was like, I just cannot keep doing this. A lot of the digestive stuff had creeped back in because I was doing like a lot of almond butter on rice cakes and just, stuff like that. I thought I was really just being healthy. I was doing a lot of healthy foods and I had a ton of inflammation. And so I decided it was my functional medicine. She's a friend of mine who's also a functional medicine doctor. And I went to her, I was like, I'm having all these problems. I just feel like complete crap. And so she's like, well, I've been carnivore for 5 months. And I've been like, you what? Like, I was just like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. That's stupid. Why would you do that? And she's like, I'm doing great. I feel great, So she kind of talked me into trying it. I was like, I'll do it for 30 days. This was like January 2019. I'm like, I'll do it for 30 days and that's it. And, I think I have a story similar to a lot of other people. You do it for 30 days and you're kind of hooked. You're like, oh my gosh, I feel so good. Like, I don't have a stomach ache all the time. I have energy. I'm not hungry all the time. I'm not, after you kind of get through that initial adaptation period, most people start to feel really good. So I have, that was January 2019. Here we are, like July 2020. And I didn't try to do any plants at all until probably the last couple months here. So,
wow.
I didn't stray, didn't try other stuff, was like just doing the deal up until just a couple months ago. And I started adding in some avocado and things like that.
Wow. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Very disciplined. So, well, obviously you're with your yoga that creates some level of discipline as well so how does that feel now as far as your physique, like with yoga and everything? Do you feel like you get enough nutrients? Obviously you've stuck with it this long and you're just now beginning to bring things in that you can tolerate, not because you feel like you necessarily need them, is what it sounds like.
Well, give or take a little bit. I added the avocado in because it was like around January, February of this year. I was having a lot of symptoms of electrolyte imbalance.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And so the avocado is a really nice natural way to get your potassium.
Yes.
So I started having some problems at the beginning of this year, 2020, after a year solid carnivore, just with my electrolytes. And so that's why I was like, all right, let me try the avocado. Let me see how I feel doing that. And it's been helpful to have that like every third day usually is when I do it.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. So magnesium and potassium, the main ones you're trying to balance. Is that what?
Yeah.
I mean, I would think most carnivores get enough salt for the most part.
Well, yeah, a lot of it's salt and meat, and everyone's obsessed with their Redmonds. But I've been doing that, but I was really low on my potassium.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So that's just something I would say most people need a supplement somewhere, depending on their diet. And electrolytes, especially if you're active or in the heat or active in the heat. I mean, I think you're in a humid environment. You're in Atlanta, right?
Yeah, it's like swamp right
Oh
now. I
yeah.
mean, it's
I'm in
ridiculous.
Nashville. So we're
Oh
not
yeah,
quite Atlanta, but
yeah,
it's hot. And if you do anything outside, you're losing it. So I definitely can relate to just with a low
oh,
carb and fasting, needing
yeah.
more magnesium and potassium as part of a just to keep things in balance. But other than so all of the pain, the joint issues, the digestion, the issues you were having before in a vegan diet, those are cleared up.
Oh yeah, totally gone. I mean,
Okay.
I don't even. I don't know if you know Ken, you do. You know Ken Berry because you said you
He
had
was
him on.
actually on the podcast just a few. Yeah, actually, it
Yeah.
just released as we're recording it earlier this week. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I talked to him just a couple weeks ago. Definitely.
Yeah, he did this really good video on poop on his YouTube channel, and he was talking about how carnivores don't really pass gas. I mean, we just don't. And for me, I thought that was just like a thing that you just do, and
Yeah, you're right.
it's just like you just do. But I don't, and I haven't, which is amazing because it was just like part of my life, my whole life. I've just kind of always had that problem.
Mm.
So my digestion's been awesome. No joint pain. I feel like I'm a little bit more flexible now than I was. Like I just have more elasticity and just
Wow.
stronger too. Yeah, absolutely.
Getting the right fats in, I would think, would help
Yeah.
with that. Having the right,
Oh, yeah.
the saturated fats and probably some
Yeah.
monounsaturated fats in there. So, you mentioned, I think you mentioned stress. Now you meditate a lot as well. I mean, that's part of your coaching.
Yeah, well, I actually got trained to meditate in a specific type of meditation. It's called Vedic meditation a couple years ago. And that was life-changing for me also. So that is something that I do every day, twice a day, and I'm on track to teach that. It's a long process to learn how to teach it.
I see.
Yeah, so I say I'm more like I guide people in meditation. I know how to do yoga nidra, help them fall asleep. I can do a guided meditation, no problem.
Sure.
But the technique like the one I practice, I don't teach that just yet. I hope to eventually, but it's a long process to learn how to actually teach it. But yeah, I do meditate every day, twice a day for 20 minutes.
Great. For more people could use that, just like you said, to get out of that sympathetic state, which our world is currently staying in at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I even got trapped in it at the beginning of the pandemic. I mean, I was doing a live stream on my YouTube trying to talk about like the Aura Ring and my CGM and some at-home blood. I was just doing a review of like different ways you can measure and track your health. If you're going to do a carnivore diet or any diet, really, I think it's important to know to get some feedback from something different than the scale, because the scale is so binary, so linear. It's just it's not going to tell you the full picture.
Right.
So I was like talking about my Aura Ring, and I was showing my heart rate variability from back in April and May of this year, and it was a disaster. I mean, my resting heart rate was a good 15 beats a minute higher than it is now. And my sleep was horrible. I was getting no more than like 30 minutes of deep sleep a night.
Oh, wow.
And I was still strict carnivore and meditating twice a day and doing everything I could do. But my body was just going through this shock of like, what everyone else is going through. The rug got ripped out from underneath us. And I've got a special needs child home 24 hours a day now, where I have, we used to have programs for her and therapists to support us constantly. Now that's gone. And so, I was like letting people know that even though I'm a yoga teacher, I meditate twice a day, all of that stuff, my body still freaked out,
Sure.
My HRV was in the toilet for a couple months and I felt bad. My blood sugar was a mess. I quit wearing my CGM. So even with like,
you just don't want to see it anymore.
I didn't. I was like, I don't want to see this.
Right.
I have a continuous glucose monitor that I haven't even taken out of the box and put on, because I'm like, I don't want to mess with this right now. Because when your body is in a stressed out state, when you're in a sympathetic state, your blood sugar is a mess. Your sleep, your cortisol is going to be super high. That's what it is at the end of the day. And I wasn't cheating. I wasn't eating any sugar. I wasn't eating any carbs, but my blood sugar was like shooting up into the hundreds.
That's amazing. I mean, that's amazing on a carnivore diet where it's probably going to stay well under 90 most of the time.
Right.
unless you're in the middle of something physically stressful, like when it's supposed to go up during exercise or a yoga class, any kind of physical activity, it's going to go up.
Yeah.
But if it's up just in the normal course of your day, when you're not being physically stressed, it's emotionally driven or environmentally driven stress, and your blood sugar's up. That says a lot for, I think, people who just purely, they look at their diet and they don't consider their environment. They don't consider how they live, their job, the sleep, world events, and how much of that they're taking in, like how much of the social media or the news that they're allowing to affect them is a part of whether they're trying to lose weight, their general health, they're trying to correct, maybe they're, just trying to improve their health with it's fatty liver. Again, it could be any number of things that are related to metabolism. And if they're only looking at their diet, they're not considering those other factors, they're missing it. And like you said, the scale isn't going to show that. The scale is not going to show them what's happening in their blood sugar. They probably have no idea that kind of stress would affect their blood sugar, and therefore affect, if it's staying high like that, you mentioned cortisol levels that high, they're not going to be able to lose weight. They're going to be able to burn fat. So they're going to be hungry, cravings. So did you notice any extra cravings or hunger?
Oh yeah, I gained weight. I mean, I still haven't lost all the weight that I've gained during quarantine. And I'm like, I tell people, I did not go out and eat ice cream. I did not cheat. I did not eat carbs, and I still gained weight. And I was still more hungry. I just ate more carnivore foods, which you can gain weight on carnivore easily.
Well, when your blood sugar's high, you can't access body fat. So if you can't access the stored fat, then you're only so if you're not burning it, you're storing it. If your blood sugar's that high, insulin's up, you're storing everything. You're going to need to eat more because you still have the same energy needs, but you're not able to access stored fat. You're going to gain weight no matter what you're eating.
Exactly.
Because you can't access body fat. You can't access it as a supplemental between your meals. So you probably, as a carnivore, I'm guessing, typically you're normal when things are normal. What'd you eat? Maybe 2 or at most 3 times a day?
I ate 3.
Okay.
I actually quit doing all fasting.
Okay.
Again, in January, February, kind of when I had a little bit of a crash. And that's been really helpful also. But yeah, I mean, I eat 3 meals a day. I don't really snack. If I'm, needing something in between, I'll drink meat broth because that's a really great source of potassium.
Yeah.
And so just a little electrolyte boost in there also. But yeah, I don't eat, 6 small meals a day or anything like that.
Right. So there's not much. I mean, you're satisfied when you eat like that.
Yeah.
Unless you're going through a stressful time where your blood sugar's through the roof.
Right.
And what a trigger. I mean, that just says a lot about that particular trigger or part of our life that we don't often manage or consider, like I said, for weight gain or blood sugar. Wow. That's incredible. Now you've got some, I saw the video you did with Dr. Barry on PUFAs, and you've done a couple with him, but I also saw a great one you did with Stephanie Pearson on, I believe it was talking about your electrolytes and how you manage that. And not to get too deep in the weeds on that to confuse people. I mean, I'd say most of your health, that's something like you're talking about micromanaging little things. The majority of your health changes came from just going full meat. I mean, would you say that was a fair trade-off?
Yeah. I mean, I had improvements across the board just from doing that. I mean, I did eat eggs the whole time too. I did go a period without any eggs, and I didn't do so great. I think I really benefit from the choline and K2 and all those amazing nutrients that you get in eggs, especially yolks. I love egg yolks. I mean, I probably eat like 6 yolks a day now.
Awesome.
They're so good. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. I think that's Barry actually does the same thing. He'll have his beef and his egg yolks, and
it's like a sauce on top. It's amazing. It's a cheese sauce. It's like you don't even eat dairy. So yeah. But a lot of people will say they do just beef and water. I prefer to have eggs and organ meats also. I am a proponent of organ meats for sure.
Absolutely. I've been trying to work those into my diet as well. just because I think they're beneficial for everybody. I mean, you can't, no matter what degree of carnivore you are, whether you're just a low carb or whatever you're doing, there's nutrition there that you can't, they're so nutrient dense in micronutrients that you just can't find that in any other kind of food, like a liver or, So I've heard some of your stories. You were like sneaking pork fat out of your freezer.
Yeah, I was. That's really when I gained the weight, as I was like so hungry. And I'm doing a high fat carnivore.
Okay.
Because another reason why my blood sugars were, I wore CGM back in December, and my blood sugars were going up into the hundreds, like 120 in my sleep. And during the day, it was tricky because during the day it was like 70s, 80s, okay, steady. Then I'd go to sleep and it would shoot up in the night, and it was scary. I started having some other problems, especially with this what led me to work with Stephanie. I got some blood work done because I wanted to get a full blood work panel to see, make sure I was healthy. I hadn't done any blood work the whole year, really. And so my blood urea nitrogen was really high. It was like out of range high. And my GFR, which is basically your kidney's ability to filtrate, was low. And it was like a 60, which is not really optimal for like a 40-year-old woman.
Right.
It's not kidney disease, but you're heading down that path. And it basically shows that you're really dehydrated. Because I had not really done anything other than salt my food to keep my electrolytes in check the whole time. I was taking magnesium in the morning and in the evening because that's what I've just always taken, magnesium.
Sure.
But I wasn't doing anything to supplement the potassium because I didn't think you had to. I didn't think it was necessary because that's kind of the word on the street is like, nah, you don't need to do that. It's unnecessary. Don't take a bunch of supplements, yada yada. So I was scared when I got those blood test results, and I just at the same time coincidentally interviewed Stephanie Keto Person. And she was like, no, you're chronically dehydrated. You have potassium deficiency. This could actually be really dangerous, because chronic dehydration can eventually lead to kidney damage. And, unlike the liver, kidneys are not going to regenerate. So,
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not the meat. I love that you brought this up because it's there's a lot of fears out there with meat and protein supposedly causing the kidney problem, and it's not, or a kidney issue, and it's not the meat or the fat in and of itself, or the iron or anything like that. It's just managing electrolytes. It's that simple, so that your kidneys will hold enough fluid in them to filtrate properly. Right. And we use those. People think they're going to down water for hydration. There's none of those minerals in the water that they're finding anymore unless they're buying really good mineral water somewhere. But I mean, even then it's not sufficient.
Right.
So it's not.
I was drinking Gerald Steiner. I was drinking a couple of those, sometimes a day, and it wasn't sufficient for me.
Yeah, and everyone's a little bit different. What their needs are, and if you're very active, if you're doing anything in heat, those are all factors. As we age, that's a factor. If you're 25 versus, like I'm turning 50 this year, there's definitely a difference. So, yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. The screen helps. But yeah, turning 50 this year, and I could definitely notice. And I am exploring with carnivore. I'm going to do a full week of full carnivore as like a cleanse, which is an unusual kind of what people think of as a cleanse. I just want to get any extra sugar, any extra inflammation out, and and have a variety of like organ meats, some suet, some oysters. I've already have oysters and sardines in my diet, so just take it to a therapy level. Yeah. And that's my toe in the water. But all week, because it's July, or all month, I should say, July, just meet July, I am highlighting the carnivore diet just to bring some awareness to it and love your story. Help people relate to it. Help people open their minds. So like you said, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Why are you doing that? And it's not crazy. It's actually, there's a reason why. You can go through a carnivore, community, and you see stuff like meat heals and meat, and it's the elimination of. I'm thinking of what we're eliminating when you go that route is you're eliminating a lot of irritants and a lot of inflammatory food, and you're letting your body just calm down and heal itself, essentially. But that doesn't mean it doesn't take some level of management, which is what you found. It's like, okay, everything you do, any diet out there is going to require some level of management or tweaking where it's going to work one way for one person and the other person is going to look a little different. And some people are going to tolerate this and others are going to need some help in another area. So that by no means should managing electrolytes sound like a concern.
Right.
That's in other words, of all the things to think about with diets, the way you were eating before, you were going to have long-term joint problems. You were serving cavities, stress. When you standard American,
that like I had horrible eczema
all
over my arms, and I have not had, except I did get some eczema back in January when I decided to eat some cheese, and then it brought the eczema back. But
interesting.
It was the cheese. Yeah, it was the little histamines. Eczema is a histamine issue, and I clearly needed to do some more healing there. That's why I eat the thymus and the kidney to boost up that DAO enzyme, which will help your body to metabolize out those histamines better. So I don't go around eating cheese now, but I can tolerate avocado. Those are very high in histamine. At first, I couldn't tolerate those. I could tolerate butter, which is also high in histamine. But, those are things in the carnivore diet. You're not going to run across a ton of histamines. But if you're eating like standard American diet, or you're definitely eating, a vegan diet or plant-based diet, you're going to have tons of histamines in your diet. So that's why I struggled with eczema my whole life. I mean, it was horrendous.
And so you were irritating it with that diet, essentially.
Oh yeah, it was making it worse. Yeah.
And generally speaking, I mean, I've heard of people reversing diabetes and getting off their meds essentially by following a carnivore diet.
Oh yeah.
And that's not. I mean, you say it to many people, and they're going to go, "What? They've never heard of such a thing. It's not in the mainstream." But I mean, you talk to many carnivores, and it's like, "Oh yeah, Talk to a lot of people." So when you look in the big picture of blood sugar problems, weight gain, obesity, hypertension, diabetes versus you got to manage some electrolytes.
Yeah.
I'll take the electrolytes. Any time,
Yeah.
And it's a minor issue, but it's something I'm glad you brought it up, because that's how, when someone starts to do this, they're going to feel things, and the people they run into one little hiccup. They tend to, it's not working. Right.
Right. Exactly.
So, plugging in, I would say definitely plugging into your, you have something coming up, don't you, that could help people with getting into that?
Yeah. Steph and I, we haven't really fully announced it yet, because it's probably not going to happen until mid-August, but we're going to do the 30-day carnivore challenge. And we're going to, every single day, it's not going to be like a regular challenge, but every day there's going to be some sort of activity that you either have to post a video of doing, the activity that we're talking about. Everything is going to be learning. So the whole month is learning, but there'll be a contest, every week. And we're going to have people kind of collecting the points. And then every Sunday, 2 winners will get consultations live in the group with Stephanie. So she's like the master with these consultations. She's been doing it for 13 years. She's been keto for 13 years.
Wow.
And so she really knows what she's doing. She's helped me tremendously. So that's, her and I are working on that project coming up. It's probably going to be announced the next couple weeks here, but that will be mid-August.
Okay, great. Well, by the time this comes out, you'll have announced it. So I won't be jumping the gun or anything like that.
I've been talking about it a little bit on my channel. Her and I, she just wants to make sure it's like perfect before we, throw it out there. But I've been kind of mentioning it on my channel in different places.
Great. So if people are looking for some, if they're curious, toe in the water, they want to try the challenge. By the time when this comes out, where would they look? Where would they find something like
Oh,
that.
I'll have it all over my Instagram. I know I'll have a link to it if you go into my bio on Instagram. It's at carnivore.yogi. I'll definitely put a link to join that challenge
Okay,
right
great.
up there in the bio so people can find it that way. Yeah.
Great. And I'll link to your Instagram and your YouTube. Is there anywhere else where people should find you? I know you do a lot of videos on YouTube, very informative.
Yeah, I do. I do a lot of YouTube videos, and you can just search in Carnivore Yogi on YouTube. To my knowledge, there's not another one. No, there's yogis out there.
Yeah, I would say you're a bit of a unicorn with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
With yogis and carnivore, that's you've got your own niche there. Pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I actually had to block out, like on Instagram and on YouTube, you can put in certain words that if people say them, their comment automatically gets deleted. Like they can't make a comment. So I actually had to put in the word namaste because because I was getting trolled by other yogis that were like, "How dare you call yourself a yogi?" And oh yeah, these people are harsh. And so I blocked out the word namaste because no one was saying it in a kind way. I was like, "This is ridiculous," but that's
Ooh,
what I'm. Yeah. Oh yeah.
virtue signaling with namaste. That's interesting. That's a
Oh, yeah.
that's a new one.
No one ever said it to me in a kind way. So I was like, you know what? This is going to go into the bank of words that the vegans and the yoga people say. They say the same freaking things. So just put that right there in the word bank. So if you want to make that comment, go for it, but it's not going to get posted. I'm not going to see it. And my followers aren't going to see it either. Have fun with that.
Oh my, that's kind of funny. I'm sorry that's happening to you.
No, I tell
funny.
you because I think it's hilarious. Honestly, it's
Good.
absolutely hilarious. Yeah,
you have a good sense of humor. Well, awesome. Well, thank you. I really appreciate your time again coming on here and sharing your story. Because again, as I just said, you're a bit of a unicorn coming from that background. But I think there's so much dogma now, not only against meat, but then pro vegan as being the healthiest way. And if you really look back at ancestral history, if you think about what effect that might have on us trying to reproduce 3 or 4 generations down the road, cognitive ability with our need for saturated fat in our brain and all of our body, and with our it doesn't add up. It might feel good, as you noticed initially,
right,
but over time, and as I discovered when I was just vegetarian in my 20s, its long-term effects, they start to creep up on you, and it takes a while to sometimes connect the dots.
It does.
But I appreciate you kind of sharing that. And
yeah, and the other thing, I did an interview with I don't know if you know Tristan Haggard from Primal Edge Health.
Mm-hmm.
He and I talked. We did an interview on my channel about vegan agenda and destroying the myths that we've been told about veganism, about plant-based eating. And, one thing I kind of expressed to him is I have a lot of girlfriends that are yoga teachers that are strict vegan, and we're friends, it's cool. But a lot of them have fertility issues. I would say most of them have fertility issues, have been trying to get pregnant, and they're so stuck to veganism. They're so like, ingrained in their heads that that's what they have to do, and that's healthy. And they're not able to get pregnant. And I'm like,
yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have a great effect on the men either, and testosterone levels, and no.
Yeah.
And then forget about bones, hair, and teeth.
Exactly. Yeah.
So skin, all the things that collagen are required for.
Yes.
So you start having those issues. Well, again, thanks so much. I'm going to link in the show notes to your Instagram and YouTube, and tell them where to go. Anywhere else they should look for you? Or those just
YouTube and Instagram are my only places I have time to keep up with these days.
I get it. Yeah, I try going into a third, and I feel like I'm. It's like adding another child on. It's like
it really is.
So, well, thank you again. I appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to continue interacting with you on Instagram. I love sharing your stuff. You have great information coming out there, and I'm going to keep. I'm learning a lot about this community. I'm really a bit of a novice in your community with the carnivore community. Not most of my diet, and what I recommend starts with meat on the plate or some sort of animal protein. and I'm just really loving what I'm seeing from you guys. And it's a the community that takes care of itself. So it's like there's not a lot of infighting. There's a lot of tolerance for people to be explorative, but also not. They don't have to be 100% all carnivore. As opposed to like
Right.
you go to a vegan community. I hate to keep digging the vegans,
Yeah.
but 100% vegan or
You're out.
you're out. You're hated on.
Exactly.
And I see a lot of acceptance and openness with people to figure out their own, whatever their diet is. So whether they're 100% carnivore, 95, 80%, whatever it is they find that their tolerance level is. And so many have come from, from something else to paleo into carnivore. So there's allowance for that journey and allowance for finding what works, and just a lot of sharing, like this worked for me, this didn't, this irritated me, like I think you alluded to before.
Yeah.
There's a lot of room to just figure out what your fit is for you that works best for your own health. And so that's been that's a refreshing that's a refreshing place when you come from any even in the just a mainstream nutrition, where anything outside of that mainstream becomes a fad, quote unquote, a fad, or dangerous, even dangerous. Right. And exactly. I've felt that for years from other people just mentioning low carb or just mentioning fasting. But so I love how accepting and willing you guys are to bring people in who are curious and just share and just help them answer the questions. So again, appreciate that. Didn't mean to get long-winded with that, but it's just, what we see now, not just in nutrition, but across the board, if you're watching social media or the news at all, that we've become very intolerant in general. I think that's what caused a lot of stress. And so to find a community that is so tolerant and willing to say, let's find, help you find your fit, help you find what works best for you. That's a refreshing change.
I agree.
That's refreshing. I agree. So, well, again, I appreciate your time here, and I look forward to seeing more of your stuff. Again, guys, Carnivore Yogi on Instagram and YouTube. And again, Just Meat July. If you haven't noticed that, just search that hashtag, and you're going to see a lot of great stuff from these carnivores. Just they're all displaying their meals and what their and their stories this month. So check it out, Sarah. I'll be staying in touch. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right.
Awesome. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Let me see here. Hit the record. I think I unmute you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks again. I always struggle with the exits and entries. I don't know why. I've never been able to say goodbye either. But I love it. I did listen to your channels, and I had found Stephanie before. Well, not before you, but like a couple before I realized she was working with you, and she'd kind of text me something or message me something about a tortilla recipe she has. She's a beast. I mean that respectfully.
Well, a lot of people are very turned off by her. It's kind of like I'm good cop, she's bad cop. Like,
right.
People, I'm the softer one. When she definitely pisses off a lot of people, for sure, and alienates people because she has really strong opinions on things, very strong.
Well, and I just meant as a physically, like I think she's
that too.
She's over 50 too, right?
She's 53 almost.
Yeah,
she's
and
like
looks
12% body fat.
Yeah, I mean, she looks 33. Really, I mean,
really does. Yeah,
she's amazing, and I like the spunky. That's fine. I can dig the spunky feel, but and because when she's convicted, she believes what she's saying, and she knows she's helping people, but she doesn't have time for BS. So I had come across her. I didn't realize you guys were working together, so I'm definitely going to be tuning in on that challenge, because I love learning, and this is opening my eyes to some stuff that I had probably maybe tuned out a bit just because of the one or two people I'd come across who I'd heard from it, it just seemed like, oh, they don't quite have that figured out yet. But then over the last several months, I've just been digging in a little deeper, and it's just hearing the stories, truly impressed with the changes people. I used to be a big, meat and veggies guy and think everybody needed the veggies, again, for the minerals, for the potassium and so forth. But I had no idea how many people were irritated in their gut by vegetables. It just didn't occur to me.
Yeah.
And
Well, it didn't occur to me either until I did this. I mean, I was just like, yeah, you have to have vegetables. Like you have to,
right.
How else are you going to get your nutrients? And until I actually did it and was like, oh, I'm not dying. Like I'm not even nutrient deficient. Like, okay, I guess I don't really need to eat 3 cups of kale per day,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I've definitely reduced my veggie intake, and it can interfere with the digestion of the meat.
Exactly.
So even over the last couple of weeks, I've been increasing my meat intake, decreasing any kind of other food that I was allowing, and feeling really good. My concern, I really don't want to lose weight.
Yeah.
Like I'm kind of
That
lean.
happens for men more than it does for women. Women have a harder time losing weight on carnivore. Men, I used to do carnivore and they just like get totally shredded like quickly. I mean, it comes off really fast for men, not so much for women though.
Well, I'm already
yeah.
Like when I do the in-body kind of measurement, I don't know if you've seen those, or electric.
Yeah.
It puts me between 3 and 4%. I've been there 3 to 5 for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous about going into the 2s. It almost makes me feel like I'd be kind of, so.
Well, just don't do any fasting, because the fasting will really accelerate. I mean,
and that's probably why I'm there, because I do a lot of fasting and I tolerate that well.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking when I do this, I'm going to have to like offset something just to find the balance. And
yeah, I mean, carnivore's a fasting mimetic. It's going to simulate fasting because you're not having the carbohydrate. You're going to have that low insulin level, low blood sugar level. So it's very similar to fasting. So I would say definitely, if you don't want to lose a bunch of weight, then just eat more often,
Eat more often. And because the protein intake, I couldn't do all that protein in one meal. Like,
oh no, you'll be exhausted.
Yeah. Barry does that. And I'm like, he does 2 pounds of meat. And I'm like, I couldn't digest that at one time.
No.
Personally. No. But he manages.
It does spike your insulin to do a lot of protein at once. I mean, it really does. There's a response there.
Oh yeah. No, go up and then down. It's like, okay, I'm tired.
Exactly.
Out. Yeah. So, okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Awesome. Well, again, I appreciate your time. I love that you've come on here and shared that. I know you do it all the time, but I can't wait for people who I have, like on Facebook and so forth, I'm directing to this podcast, to hear this point of view that they just don't hear.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned with Ken Berry, it's like you ask the average person on the street what they think the benefits of the carnivore diet are. And then I go, the benefits of what?
Yeah.
So I think just it's exposure, introduction. It's not, you need to do this now. It's let's expose and involve and, just take down the defense mechanism of fingers in the face and dogma, and just let people hear stories like yours so that they can relate to, and then kind of delve into it, as most people did in a transition period, in a story of, like exploring it. Love it. Okay. I don't want to take more of your time. I know you got a child at home. So thanks again, Sarah. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
All right.